Hi, these are the top 20 films of 1971. I usually only do a top 10, but this is one of the great years for cinema. So I'll speed through 20 to 11, and when I say top 20, I mean my personal favourite films of 1971. Cheers. In at number 20, Two Lane Blacktop. This just narrowly beats Vanishing Point to get into the top 20. Both are great car movies, but this has Warren Oates' outstanding performance as a depressed man full of shit.
I bought her in Bakersfield, California.
I want it shooting craps.
It's a test car. I want it flat out.
In at number 19, Taking Off. Milos Forman's first American film is really funny. Buck Henry is hilarious. And it features Kathy Bates' first film appearance, where she's credited as Bobo Bates. In at number 18, Dirty Harry. Clint Eastwood stars in this Don Siegel film about a filthy cop who loves hot dogs and shooting suspects. I don't agree with the politics, but it's a bloody cool film. In at number 17, Harold and Maude. A young man who's obsessed with death and the macabre gets into a sexual relationship with an old woman. It's funny, touching, and of course, it's bonkers.
Do you Harold, please?
In at number 16, The Devils. Ken Russell takes on religion, politics, and sex. He's given a fairly large budget, so it's as mental as you'd expect, but it's also brilliant. In at number 15, Carnal Knowledge. Mike Nichols' film about two friends and their sexual exploits over the years features one of my favourite movie arguments.
Where the fuck is my shoehorn? This place is a mess. There's not any food in the house. Half the time you look like you fell out of bed. You spend more time in bed than any other human being past the age of 6 months than I ever heard of.
The reason I sleep all day is because I can't stand my life.
What life?
Sleeping all day!
Jack Nicholson is amazing in it, and Art Garfunkel is also in it. In at number 14, Bedknobs and Broomsticks. Eternal 70-year-old Angela Lansbury stars in this Disney classic, where she takes a bunch of kids on a wonderful adventure in bed. Not like that.
What's that got to do with my knob?
In at number 13, Duel. Steven Spielberg bursts onto the scene with this motorway set action horror thriller, a man being bullied and chased by a truck. It showcases just how good Spielberg was. In at number 12, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Amazing songs and Gene Wilder's fantastic performance make this Roald Dahl adaptation really charming and also a little scary.
They're certainly not showing any signs that they are slowing! You stole fizzy lifting drinks. You bumped into the ceiling, which now has to be washed and sterilized, so you get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
In at number 11, Straw Dogs. Dustin Hoffman fights off Cornish rapists and thugs using household items and whatever he can find, a la Home Alone. What's not to like? Before we go into the top 10, here are some other notable releases in 1971. THX 1138, or Thanks 1138. George Lucas makes his directorial debut, and it's such a fascinating film, especially the first half where he sets up this grim world. Unfortunately, he does what he does and went back to it and re-edited it, and added some weird sort of CGI monkey monsters. That's what it was missing. Jane Fonda is absolutely brilliant in the movie Klute. She plays a prostitute who is sort of being hunted and intimidated by a man, and Donald Sutherland's private eye is there to sort of find out who this person is. She's really what the film is about. She's the centre of it, and it's a fantastic performance. So it's very strange. It's called Klute, which is the name of Donald Sutherland's character. It'd be a bit like calling Erin Brockovich Ed Macery. Clint Eastwood made his directorial debut in Play Misty for Me, where Jessica Walter of Arrested Development...
I have the Ike and Tina tuna.
Plate or platter?
I don't understand the question, and I won't respond to it.
is absolutely fantastic as a maniac.
I love you.
Get her out of here, man.
Please.
Where to?
Because I love you.
too, mister. Move!
I really enjoy Vincent Price in the abominable Dr. Phibes. There was the first Monty Python movie.
And now for something completely different.
Bruce Lee made his first martial art film, The Big Boss. The third Planet of the Apes film, Escape from the Planet of the Apes, which is one of my favourite ones, has such a brilliant ending to it. And there was the blaxploitation classic Shaft, which is really cool and has some great moments in, although the action sequences aren't very good. And now the top 10 films of 1971. In at number 10, Death in Venice. Visconti's beautiful and tragic film is heart-wrenching in a very strange way. Dirk Bogarde plays a composer who comes to Venice while he suffers from heart disease. Not the best place to go at the time, as it was going through a cholera epidemic. Bit close to home these days. While there, he becomes obsessed with a young Polish teenager. The two never speak, but he becomes the composer's world. It's tragic and miserable, but due to the stunning visuals and the repeated use of Mahler's Fifth Symphony, it's upsetting and even somewhat romantic. Visconti expertly showing us how Bogarde is seeing this young man. The ending is kind of pathetic and upsetting, but it's still very, very moving. In at number 9, Walkabout. Nicholas Roeg was one of the great visual directors, and here he tells a very simple story using great cinematography and trippy imagery and editing. A young girl and her little brother are driven into the Australian desert by their father. He goes mad and tries to kill them before setting the car on fire and shooting himself. Eventually they meet an Aborigine and they communicate through signs and gestures. It's a strange movie, and it's really about life and survival. It's beautiful and captivating. In at number 8, The Beguiled. Don Siegel and Clint Eastwood make their second appearance on this list, and for my money this is their best collaboration, and has my favourite Eastwood performance in it. Eastwood plays a completely horrid prick, a wounded Union soldier who is taken in and hidden by the students and the teacher at a girls' school in Mississippi. Even though they are helping him, Eastwood spends the entire time deceiving them and playing them against each other. It's really nasty. I don't want to ruin the ending, but wow. It's my favourite Don Siegel film, and it's really twisted. Number 7, Wake in Fright. Possibly my favourite Australian movie. Me, Chris and John did quite a long review of it, so I'll leave that down below and up here. But yeah, give that video a watch. In number 6, The French Connection. What a movie! William Friedkin's police thriller is brilliant. Gene Hackman gives one of the great performances of the 70s as Popeye Doyle, a tough bastard of a cop. He's investigating the smuggling of heroin into the country from France. The police procedure details are amazing, showing the boredom and the long hours of stakeouts, stripping cars to their bare bones and tailing people forever. Everything in this film is fascinating. It's completely believable, but still manages to have one of the great a car chasing a train sequences in film history. It's groundbreaking, and Friedkin pulls it off perfectly. This is a marvellous New York movie, but also one of the great cop thrillers. In at number 5, Duck You Sucker. The Dollars trilogy, Once Upon a Time in the West, and Once Upon a Time in America are considered movie classics. Why on earth is this Sergio Leone classic kind of forgotten? Well, it's a appalling title. This is the middle part of the Once Upon a Time trilogy. It was going to be called Once Upon a Time The Revolution, but it was too similar to a film that had come out recently. Leone thought Duck You Sucker was a common American expression. I can only imagine it being used in a lollipop shop with very low ceilings.
Duck, you sucker.
It's such a shame that this is so often overlooked, because this is a masterpiece. It's the first Leone film to feature characters that change and learn things. Rod Steiger's criminal who gets caught up in the Mexican Revolution along with James Coburn's Irish Republican explosive expert. Both change in amazing ways. The film starts small, like a usual Western, but by the end it is epic on a scale unseen in any other of Leone's films. Astonishing sequences and moments, unbelievably beautiful cinematography, and another amazing score from Ennio Morricone make this one of the great films that requires more attention. In at number 4, McCabe and Mrs. Miller. Robert Altman's anti-western tells a cowboy tale like no other. Warren Beatty plays McCabe, a fast-talking conman who arrives in the cold and miserable town in Washington state. He sets up a brothel and soon meets Julie Christie's Mrs. Miller, a Cockney prostitute who says she can run the joint for him. He's a complete sleazebag, and she's very charming, but her character is addicted to heroin, so it's got this incredible tragic feeling to it. The film ramps up in the second half, where two men representing a rich out-of-towner try and buy the establishment from Beatty. Beatty thinks he can increase the price by pretending he's not interested in selling, and when he denies them the first time, they just decide to kill him. And it's too late for him to try and bargain back again. It's amazing. It's an arresting film with a dreamlike quality. It has this cloudy look to it that Altman created with filters on the cameras and by flashing the film negative. Both Beatty and Christie are superb. The shootout at the end in the snow is one of the great Western endings. A realistic, messy shootout that will have you on the edge of your seat. In at number 3, Get Carter. This is one of the great British crime films. Michael Caine plays Jack Carter, a London-based gangster who travels up to Newcastle to find out who murdered his bloody brother. It's an amazing revenge film. Caine is completely believable as a man who'll do anything. The soundtrack by Roy Budd is fantastic. It's a miserable and mean film.
What are you doing now?
Walking at Woolworths.
That must be very interesting.
The tone of the film is dictated by the character of Jack. Those men he's bloody after are doomed. But so is he. She was only 16 years old. It's a bleak film, but it's also bloody cool. In at number 2, The Last Picture Show. This is one of the best coming-of-age stories. Peter Bogdanovich and his ensemble cast make a truly moving tale of life in a small Texas town in 1951. The characters are fully realised, and the performances by Timothy Bottoms, Jeff Bridges, Sybil Shepherd, Ben Johnson, Cloris Leachman and Ellen Burstyn are all marvellous. It's heart-wrenching, but at the same time it's riveting to look at these people's lives in this depressing town where there isn't much to do. It's got a large cast, but each of the characters has a journey that they go on. When the film ends, I just want to spend more time there and find out what happened to these characters. Unfortunately, Bogdanovich did return to that town 19 years later for the sequel Texasville. But the less said about that, the better. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about The Last Picture Show, which is fabulous. And in at number 1, A Clockwork Orange. Stanley Kubrick continues his run of perfect films with this adaptation of Anthony Burgess's novel of the same name. We follow Malcolm McDowell's Alex and his gang of droogs. They're right arseholes, committing horrid crimes and loving every second of it. Many Kubrick films are films of 2 distinct halves, but here it is split into 3. In the first part, we see the horrid crimes of the gang. In the second part, we see his imprisonment and torturous reconditioning. And in the last part, we see him being released into a world which is incapable of accepting him. What I find so outstanding is how we feel different about Alex in each segment. We hate him, we pity him, and by the end we are bizarrely wishing he'd return to his old self. It's remarkable. The performances are amazing, and of course the film looks gorgeous. The soundtrack, consisting of classical music, is iconic. It's filmmaking at its highest standard. Kubrick once again knocks it out of the park. Right, so counting down the top 20. In at number 20, Two Lane Blacktop. In at number 19, Taking Off. In at number 18, Dirty Harry. In at number 17, Harold and Maude. In at number 16, Duel. In at number 15, The Devils. In at number 14, Carnal Knowledge. In at number 13, Bedknobs and Broomsticks. In at number 12, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. In at number 11, Straw Dogs. In at number 10, Death in Venice. In at number 9, Walkabout. In at number 8, The Beguiled. In at number 7, Wake in Fright. In at number 6, The French Connection. In at number 5, Duck You Sucker. In at number 4, McCabe and Mrs. Miller. In at number 3, Get Carter. In at number 2, The Last Picture Show. And in at number 1, A Clockwork Orange. Well, that was my top 20 films of 1971. A great year for cinema. I've probably missed out some. What are your top 20, 30, 40, 50 films of 1971? Cheers.